In this lesson, we'll look at your sense of hearing, which is also known as audition. We'll take a look at the property of sound waves, the anatomy of the ear, two theories on how we hear pitch, and also causes of hearing loss. Similar to the sense of vision, what we hear travels in waves also. They travel in sound waves. So the property of sound waves determine what you hear. The wavelength or frequency, again, the distance from peak to peak, will give you the pitch that you hear. A very rapid frequency, or very short wavelength, will give you a high-pitched sound. Waves that have a lower frequency, a longer distance from peak to peak, will give you your lower pitched sounds. The amplitude, the intensity, or the height of the wave here will give you your volume. So a higher amplitude or intensity or a higher height of the wave will produce louder sounds, where a small amplitude, lower intensity will provide your softer sounds. When we look at the anatomy of the ear, we look at three different regions: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. We'll look at all the different parts for each of these regions. So first of all, the outer ear. Sound waves are collected by the portion of the ear that you can see, and that is called the pinna. Then those sound waves, after coming in through the pinna, will travel down the auditory canal and vibrate off of the tympanic membrane, or your eardrum, at the bottom of the auditory canal. Once those sound waves travel through the tympanic membrane, they enter the middle ear. The middle ear consists of three small tiny bones called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. So the sound waves will travel through the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, and then vibrate off the second window, or second membrane, called the oval window, which divides the middle and the inner ear. Once the sound waves travel through the oval window, they enter the inner ear. The inner ear is called the cochlea, and it is a snail-shaped part of the ear that's filled with fluid and hair cells known as cilia. As the sound waves move through the inner ear, the fluid moves across the hairs. As the fluid starts to travel across the hairs, transduction will take place, and those sound waves will be converted to a neural impulse. Remember, when we looked at vision, transduction takes place in the photoreceptors inside of the retina. Here, transduction occurs inside the inner ear as fluid is moving across the hairs. Once transduction takes place and the sound waves are converted to a neural impulse, the auditory nerve will pick up the impulse, carry that impulse again up to the thalamus, and the thalamus will send those impulses to the auditory cortex of the temporal lobe for processing or interpretation. There are two types of hearing loss. First of all, conduction hearing loss, or mechanical hearing loss. This refers to damage to the outer or the middle ear. So this would be damaged, let's say, wax buildup in the ear canal, or a perforated eardrum or tympanic membrane, or it could involve the three little bones in the middle ear. This type of damage can be fixed. Nerve hearing loss, or sensory neural hearing loss, would be damage to the cochlea, and this is damage to the hair cells, or the nerve endings we call cilia. This is normally due to prolonged exposure to noise. This causes permanent damage. However, we now perform cochlear implants that can repair this type of damage. Just like the two theories of color vision, we also have two theories involving how we hear pitch. The first theory is called the place theory. According to this theory, the place in which the cilia or hairs are vibrating will cause us to perceive different pitches. So it's the location of the vibrating hairs. So an example would be cilia that are located further inside of the ear may have a different pitch when they vibrate, as opposed to the cilia or hairs that are in the outer portion of the cochlea. The second theory is the frequency theory. So here you're looking at the wavelength. They're not concerned with where the cilia or hairs are located. This theory, they believe that all the hairs are vibrating, but just at different speeds. So, for example, when the sound waves, the waves are coming in at a very fast frequency, you will hear a higher pitched sound. So here it's the frequency or the speed of the wave, and not where the waves or where the cilia are vibrating in location inside of the inner ear.